When he have good opponents, he just lose. That's it. When he have Shavkat, if he talk too much, just look at your fight. That guy beat you 4 rounds. That's it.
Earlier today, Ian said that he beat Shavkat for 24 minutes. Was it right? Yeah. Oh, Carlos, excuse me.
He just Carlos.
Yeah, sorry.
He can beat Carlos, but he can beat everyone. But I'm not same like that, guys. I'm different.
Do you agree with? I saw your manager say this. Do you agree that Ian is going to run from you throughout the fight?
Sure, he has same style or every fight. He just run back and he just working for the point. I don't remember when he finished someone last time.
That's if I go out there and I scalp him in 2 minutes, do you want to see me fight him again straight away? Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it is. If we have a back and forth war like he had with Volkanovski, then it probably would warrant a rematch. But also, there's many other challenges here that are exciting at the same time. So let's get through Saturday night. Let's get the win, and then we'll see in what fashion I get the victory and if there's a rematch on the cards. But I wouldn't be against it. I think he's earned enough to do it. But let's get through Saturday night first.
Come on, Savannah.
3, 2, 1, face off. Face forward, please, guys. Perfect.
Thanks, boys. Thank you, guys. Good. We're moving. Good.
I just kind of felt like yesterday he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be at the face-off. I sensed a little bit of like nervous energy from him, but
you talked about how this is pretty black and white, striker versus grappler, maybe the most extreme example of that in UFC history. But if he does bring it to the areas that he's good at, to the ground, how comfortable are you dealing with that? And also, do you feel like you still, after all these years, don't get enough credit for your grappling?
grab my leg and find out.
And when you're looking at your opponent, what do you think will be your biggest challenge going against him?
No, it's not gonna be my biggest challenge. He just good, I give him respect. He have good skills, but everybody knows my game, and we'll see how he prepare for that.
How important is it to you, and how do you ensure that you get off to a good start? I would not want to be down after round one in a fight this highly competitive, this highly skilled. Is that something that you have discussed? And like, am I making too much of that, or is a quick start very important in this fight?
I've not thought about it like that. I think about going in there, and as much as Volkanovski is a legend of the sport and Dustin Poirier is a legend of the sport, they're not as dangerous as the guys I've just mentioned. Not only that, every single one of them is bigger, longer. Shavkat was 18-0 and 18 finishes when I fought him. He had like 10 knockouts and 8 submissions. Carlos Praches had an 11-fight win streak by knockouts when I fought him. I've been fighting the highest level of MMA fights against the toughest opponents. When I step into this octagon against Islam Makhachev, I'm going to prove to the world why Ian Machado is truly the people we've fought. So if you look at my last 5 opponents versus Islam's last 5 opponents, in my opinion, it's not a discussion who's more difficult. When you look at who I fought, Belal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Carlos Praches, MVP, those 4 are 4 of the trickiest fighters on the planet. All of them present real danger. When you look at JDM, Renato Moicano, Dustin Poirier, and the other 4th one I think was Volkanovski, if I'm correct.
I believe so, yeah.
People's takedowns, not allowing them to have that success, not allowing them to get their momentum flowing, and irritate and frustrate and punch them in between and find every way possible to prevent them from having success and allow me to shine. Look at the Shavkat fight, right? I stopped, between Shavkat and Belal, I stopped 15 of 17 takedowns. The highest level of MMA fights against the toughest opponents. When I step into this octagon against Islam Makhachev, I'm going to prove to the world why Machado is truly great. Beating him by any means necessary. It doesn't matter how the first second goes, it doesn't matter how the last second goes, or anything in between. As long as I'm doing everything in that moment to make the right decision, to cause the most beautiful violence I possibly can, and do everything correct to get my hand raised. By any means necessary. To get my hand raised against Islam Makhachev is how I'm going to win.
Islam's time management while striking at a competent level represents a crucial tactical layer. Islam doesn't need to outstrike Garry over 5 rounds, he needs to strike Garry while simultaneously applying pressure that forces cage positioning. When Islam throws a jab, a kick, a combination, he's not trying to win the striking exchange, he's trying to force Garry's response. Garry backs up, Islam follows. Garry steps laterally, Islam cuts off the cage. Garry tries to reset, Islam applies another combination. The volume isn't high, the directional purpose is absolute. Islam has fought elite strikers, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira's victory record speaks to elite opposition. But Islam controlled the pace and position while doing it. Against Garry, that same approach applies. Islam doesn't need to outstrike a taller opponent. He needs to make the striking phase uncomfortable enough that Garry is willing to accept the clinch exchanges. Islam's striking advantage over Garry exists not because Islam is the better striker at distance. It exists because Islam's takedown threat is constant. Garry must allocate psychological and physical resources to defending the clinch entry, to preparing for Islam's pressure, to checking or avoiding the catching sequences. This mental allocation, this fear tax, changes Garry's striking approach. He can't throw combinations with full commitment, because part of his processing power is reserved for Islam might close distance right now. Islam, by contrast, can strike more freely because he's not defending against a superior striker. He's managing distance against a taller, longer fighter who's increasingly concerned about what happens when Islam gets inside. The takedown threat isn't separate from Islam's striking system. It's the feature that makes his striking more efficient. The clinch architecture that follows Islam's approach is a multi-phase system. After Islam catches a kick or closes distance on a striking sequence, he accesses the clinch. From there, he's not trying to immediately take Garry down, he's threatening it. Clinch pressure doesn't require the takedown to land, it requires the threat to be believed. Garry has to tighten defensively, lower his posture, and prepare for Islam to drive him backward into the cage. This is where Islam's advantage in clinch exchanges becomes decisive. It's not just about strength, it's about sequencing. Islam threatens the takedown, Garry commits defensively, Islam accesses the collar tie or uses the cage as a third point of contact, and suddenly the fight has shifted into Islam's preferred range. Clinch pressure isn't a 5-second exchange. It's a pattern that repeats across the round and changes Garry's decision-making. The submission risk that accumulates across 5 rounds becomes mathematically different depending on clinch exposure. Every clinch sequence Islam establishes is an opportunity to threaten the takedown, to feel for positional control, to wear Garry's defensive posture. Multiple analysts predicted a submission finish in the 3rd or 4th round, specifically via Islam's elite grappling and submission systems. But this prediction isn't about one submission sequence. It's about how clinch volume, takedown pressure, and positional control compound. A submission in round 3 isn't a random occurrence. It's the inevitable result of Islam establishing clinch patterns in round 1, forcing Garry to defend them in round 2, and then accessing deeper submission angles in round 3 when Garry's defensive options have already been exhausted. The submission risk scales with clinch volume. The fight structure that will determine the outcome is determined by whose system survives first contact. Islam's system is designed for accumulation. Small clinch sequences leading to larger patterns, pressure forcing cage positioning, striking used functionally to create openings and entries rather than to win exchanges. Garry's system requires maintenance of distance and the ability to generate power from a platform that's increasingly moving backward as Islam applies pressure. One system is designed to contract space and accumulate control, the other is designed to maintain space and avoid engagement. When Islam closes distance and accesses the clinch, his system is winning. When Garry resets and forces Islam to chase from range, Garry's system is winning. That's the entire fight. No predictions. Just mechanics colliding inside the cage. Garry's tactical path forward requires removing significant elements of his striking arsenal. Taking out the kick game, the push kicks, the body kicks, especially the head kicks, changes his range management. His advantage at distance becomes purely hands-based, jab, cross, hook, uppercut, head movement. But hand striking from range against an opponent who's applying constant pressure and clinch threats is a different problem than kicking from range. The jab becomes functional defense instead of range management. Garry would need to throw hand combinations that don't just land, they force Islam backward, but backward movement takes power off punches. This is the technical trap. Garry's most natural striking approach, movement plus kicks, is exactly the one that Islam has trained to counter. His alternative, hand striking while retreating, is mechanically compromised. Ian Garry's alternative is hand striking, jabs, crosses, combinations at range. But Garry has a secondary problem: he moves backward. When a fighter moves backward while striking, two things happen simultaneously. First, his punches lose power because he's loading his rear hip on a platform moving away from his target. Second, backward movement signals to an opponent that pressure is working. Islam doesn't need to throw harder combinations if Garry is already giving ground. Islam throws the same volume at the same intensity, but now Garry is backing up into the cage while trying to generate force away from his target. This creates a technical math problem. Islam can apply equal or slightly greater pressure than what Garry is comfortable facing while standing, and Garry's only response is to retreat. Retreat leads to fence. Garry's grappling defense against Islam isn't about survival once the takedown is complete. It's about whether he can prevent Islam from establishing clinch control in the first place. Multiple analysts watching the tape noted that Garry's movement and footwork are excellent at range, but the moment Islam's hand makes contact, Garry's options narrow dramatically. The issue isn't that Garry can't defend takedowns. It's that Islam's threat is designed to limit Garry's striking before the wrestling even starts. If Garry is thinking about clinch, he's not thinking about striking combinations. If Garry is thinking about the push kick, he's not thinking about Islam's catch and takedown sequence. Islam doesn't need to finish takedowns at a high percentage to win the clinch battle. He needs the threat to force Garry into defensive decision-making. Islam's clinch pressure, cage compression system, and constant takedown threat creates a cumulative wear against which Garry's movement and range management become less effective as the rounds progress. The question isn't whether Garry can defend takedowns or whether he can strike from range. Both are true. The question is whether Garry can maintain his distance management, generate striking power, prevent clinch access, and defend takedowns simultaneously across 5 rounds, while Islam is applying pressure that forces backward movement and cage contact. That's the system's conflict. Islam doesn't need to dominate any single phase. He needs to make the clinch accessible enough and the striking threat concerning enough that Garry can't maintain the distance architecture his entire game is built on. Ian Garry has a fundamental structural problem that Islam Makhachev's team has identified and trained specifically to exploit. Garry's striking arsenal is built on kicks, push kicks to the lead leg, body kicks, head kicks. Against most opponents, this works. Against Islam, every single kick becomes an entry device into a takedown. This isn't about surviving the kick, it's about what happens after Garry commits to the movement. When Islam catches a Dagestani catch, and Dagestani fighters are expert kick catchers, he doesn't just absorb impact. He steps into the direction of the incoming kick, controls the ankle or shin with a vice grip, and immediately closes distance into a body lock or clinch position. That's not the end of the kick, that's the beginning of Islam's offense. The mechanical consequence of Garry's kick game is cage positioning. Once Islam has the leg, the grip, and the directional advantage, he's moved Garry closer to the fence than Garry wanted to be. The takedown threat that follows isn't just about finishing the wrestling sequence, it's about forcing Garry to abandon the strategy that got him there. Islam's team prepared specifically for how much Garry uses cage disengagement. In camp, Islam said the only thing he didn't enjoy was having to chase Garry. Now Garry's own kicks are closing that distance. This is kick catching as a cage compression system, not as a striking defense.